What happens when the career that rewarded you for saying yes is now starting to cost you? Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, Her C-Suite Radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I learn right alongside you as I interview amazing leaders like my guest today. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite, a portfolio career network where women are building what's next. And I can't wait for you to hear this conversation with Alli Murphy. She's the former managing director in social impact and founder of the Non-Negotiables Club, as well as she has a business that has been thriving as a coach that helps women navigate this position of being the chief everything officer and how do you move out of that to keep progressing in your career. We're going to talk all about it, so let's get started now. Alli, I'm so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. Thanks for being on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
This conversation is going to help so many of our listeners that are feeling stuck, overwhelmed. I cannot wait. But before we dive in, I always like to ask one question, which is, tell us a little bit about a snapshot of what brings us to this moment today, about all the amazing things that led us to this moment.
A little snapshot. Let's see. I worked in social impact for the last 6 years. And the snapshot, which maybe isn't the happiest part at first, is I gave up my life climbing the ladder from manager to director to managing director. But the better part is that I got it back while keeping my leadership position. And now I get to help women not have to climb back down that ladder and get to actually enjoy their career and be ambitious and have a damn life outside of work. So that's, I guess, our snapshot.
I like that snapshot. And we were talking before we started about events, which of course is near and dear to my heart. And we were commiserating in the details. I think a lot of people don't know all the plates and things that were like up in the air just constantly. And it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure, even if you have the most amazing team, which I did. I had an incredible teams, thousands of events. And it was still, that moment of like, okay, we got to get this done kind of thing. You did 5 of those events. Tell me about that. And then your 6th one, you were like, maybe not. So what was that like for you?
So I ran an annual conference called Engage for Good, which if you're not in the social impact world, you've probably never heard of. 600 to 700 people, depending on the year, 90 speakers, 5 rotating breakouts, keynotes, massive AV packages, the whole thing. And I wasn't in charge of it when I started. I was only a manager at that point. But as I became a director and then a managing director, that program, our awards program, and a variety of other things became my project and my team's project. And like you, I had a phenomenal team and I loved the strategy of building community around events. I loved thinking about how do we get people to learn in different ways or meet new people. I loved speaking on stage, like giving keynotes. I know some people are like, I hate public speaking. I loved it. And I got to work with some really high level people. So VPs from ESPN and Disney and Subaru, but also the world's biggest nonprofits. What I despised, even though I was really good at it, is all of the smaller details and the logistics behind the scenes. Everything from catering and AV orders to badge pickups and sponsor deliverables and signage. And that stuff is important, but it's not what fills me up. And I had spent 6 years working on all of those pieces and then the higher level pieces as I got a team. But I was looking at what would have been, I think it was my 6th conference, sitting there going, I don't want to do it anymore. And I'd been very clear with my CEO. We were acquired about a year before that. And I'd been really clear with my boss about what I wanted to move into and that events was not where I wanted to be long-term. I understood it was a business need at the time, but not what I wanted to do. And so I walked away from corporate last January from that managing director role and started to build a business that helps women do what I did, which is essentially how do you stay in a leadership position? Like I was in that managing director position and get your life back outside of work. And so I ended up leaving after I figured that out. And now I get to help other women do that too.
And one of the things you were sharing with me is that the things that help us get to where we're going isn't the thing we want to do anymore, or that it's weighing us down. So saying yes, we're conditioned to say yes. You need to say yes. because then you'll get viewed as a leader. You need to do these things. So you do, and you rise up this vertical, which luckily now after COVID, I think it's more of a lattice kind of thing. It's not so like you can only go this way. And,
We have more options now.
you have more options, but even so, in order to get to that senior executive level, there's no doubt that there's hustle, there's availability, there's texting, there's emails late at night, emails first thing in the morning. We were talking about Slack at 5 a.m. Like those things are a reality, especially for those executive leaders. Those things are the reality, but it can really weigh on us because women are also juggling a lot of hats. We're a sandwich generation. You're taking care of maybe someone older than you. You're taking care of someone younger, or your spouse or yourself or whatever. What are some of the things that you're telling women at that point when they're close or already have gotten to that point and they're just, wow, I cannot.
I cannot anymore. I want to be able to eat my breakfast without looking at my phone. Yeah. My team was also 3 hours ahead of me, as was my CEO. And so by the time I got up at 5 a.m., they'd started their workday.
So you're on the West Coast for those listening. And so I'm guessing they were on the East Coast.
Yep, they were East Coast. Technically, my hours were still 8 to 5, but I'm checking Slack before I brush my teeth or answering things after work. But one of the most tactical things that I like to tell people in the beginning is actually one mindset first. The things that got you here don't mean you're bad or broken or you've done leadership wrong. Like you've been rewarded and promoted and applauded essentially for saying yes, for being always on, for all those things. Like none of that has been wrong. And now you get to do something differently. So, in terms of the tactical, one of my all time favorite things to do is to run mini experiments. And so, when you go up to somebody and you say, like, oh, you should just delegate or time block your calendar or just say no, that's what all the experts tell you to do. But how often is somebody who's always on their phone going to be like, yeah, let me just put it down? No, like we know we should do those things, but when you're what I call the chief everything officer, that's really hard. And it's often because our brain and our bodies and our nervous system don't think it's safe to do anything different. Like we got to this level because I checked my phone all the time. Why on earth would I stop now? Like my team's going to drop the ball, somebody's going to be upset, whatever. And so I have all of my clients run mini experiments. What is the smallest action that you could do differently for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 days, and see what the data says? Like we have a belief about what'll happen. You might be right. You might be wrong. And seeing what that actually is in practice is totally different. So to give you an example, my coach years ago, her name was Deborah, when I was going through this, asked me like, hey, Alli, at this point, I'd stopped checking Slack at 5 in the morning. It was like 8 o'clock. But my best creative brain space, strategic brain space is in the morning. And I was giving that away as soon as I opened my computer to the team, the vendors, whatever. And Deborah goes, hey, Alli, what would happen if you didn't check Slack or email for the first hour of your workday? And my reaction was, I could never, like my boss will be upset, my team needs me, whatever. We went through this whole conversation. And at the end of it, I'm like, all right, fine. I will try this for a week. So I told my team ahead of time. I told them why. And I also said, hey, if you need me, text me or call me. And I knew that they would because that was a channel that we used for important things already. And lo and behold, nothing broke. Nothing went completely sideways. Nobody was upset. My CEO wasn't thrilled at first, but after I started doing this and he saw what came out of it, he was actually happy. And so to come back around, the point is running things as experiments to test what our belief is or what we're scared of is one piece. And it also is so much easier than like, well, I'm just not going to check my phone anymore. Your brain's like, no. But if you give it a definite amount of time, it's much easier.
Yeah, I think if you're time blocking and everyone knows it and they're like, oh, because then we'll have a better outcome at our meeting if you have an all hands or whatever, because you're all ready. You feel like you're not behind, deer in the headlights, like, oh, I've been answering Slack all day and I didn't get a chance to get ready or whatever could come up. So I can imagine that those little experiments really give yourself proof.
Yes.
You have, I don't like the word permission, but like your own kind of pass, if you will, to get to the next level. And I love your Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here, don't stay here.
It's not supposed to grow with you into this level of leadership. You leave it behind now.
So once she gets past that, what's the next thing? Does she start like bigger and bigger things, or what happens? What is some of the transformation you're seeing in the work you're doing?
So, transformation wise, one of the biggest things that sticks with me is how much a leader, whether it's a senior director or I have a chief development officer who's doing this right now, how much coaching your team frees up so much space for you and actually develops them. Because most of the women that I work with who are in this chief everything officer mode know how to get things done. They'll hand over answers. And instead, when their team brings them questions, they'll go, "Hey, that's a great question. You're closer to this than I am. What do you think?" Or, "If I were on vacation, you couldn't reach me. What would your first step be?" And so they're learning to ask questions instead of handing over the answers. And so, results wise, there's both the personal, the business, and the career. And so, personal, or I guess business wise, first, like I have clients who've grown revenue 14% year over year on the biggest fundraising program, or 50% growth quarter over quarter. I've had clients go from being a director to a senior director, or a VP to a chief development officer, getting 20% raises. Like the business growth, the personal leadership promotions, but also the stuff that really lights me up. Like I have a client who used to go to game nights all the time with her friends and stopped going for a really long time. And on week 2 of working together, this was a one-on-one client, she went back to game night and she walked in the door and her friends go, "I'm shocked you're here. Like, I'm so glad you're here, but I'm shocked." So people going back to game nights, Friday cocktails, baking sourdough, taking first work-free vacation. I just had a client go to Disney and not work at all or even check her work apps for the first time. So it's this combination of career and life. And when you bring those two pieces together, both get better. We're taught that like you can have one or the other. I call it the one thing lie. But if you actually have a life outside of work, it means you're better at your job too.
I love the one thing lie. That is so true.
It's a section of my book.
So let's talk about your book. Tell me more about that. What are some of the things that you uncovered when you were writing it?
So I am still writing. It'll be published before the end of the year. Not a single sentence in the thing or a paragraph or chapter is written by AI. So in a world where AI writes so many things, and I use it daily, don't get me wrong, but to write something for myself is fascinating. And I've realized how much of that skill had kind of disappeared. But a couple things that I have learned through that process or I'm realizing, one came this week. And that was I was talking with my developmental editor, and we were going through the entire book map, which is basically the detailed outline of every chapter and part and how they weave together. And I was sitting there going, okay, I have things about experiments. I have things about you need side quests outside of work, how to handle different interactions or people that are upset. I didn't have a single piece on the stress cycle or managing stress or the nervous system, which sounds soft to a lot of people or not businessy. But I went back and thought about it and I was like, that was a massive part of me getting my life back. Like I had to be able to essentially down regulate my nervous system enough to even think about being able to turn Slack off so I could go out to dinner with friends and not talk about work the whole time. And so things as simple as exercise, closing that cycle, or doing a yoga nidra, or it sounds so goofy and it is, but like physically shaking out the way that a zebra does after escaping a tiger or my puppy Moose does when he wants to expel some energy. That is one of the things that is getting added in when I go on my writing retreat in 2 weeks because I was like, this isn't in there yet.
First of all, congratulations on not using AI. I'm super anti AI for writing. Even though I work in AI, that is literally what I do, a good portion of what I do. But we can't give away our intellectual knowledge. And it doesn't come from the heart if it's not from you. I literally had AI today tell me, I'm not a human, so I can't relate. I can't relate to the anxiety you seem to be having over this thing, but here's what we can do. And I was like, I did not like that answer. I'm not human. I'm a machine. I can't help you with that.
Yep.
Like, okay, that wasn't what I was going for. But I think writing from the heart and writing from experience is what is going to resonate with women reading this, is they're going to relate instantly to your stories and, oh, that is a great idea. Just walk away for 5 minutes and, go outside. That is like one of the best tools that we have. And you live in a beautiful place and one of my favorite places to ski. So
Oh, yes. Mount Bachelor.
I love Mount Bachelor. I went there 100 years ago and it was a snowstorm and I didn't think anything of it, just going up to the top of the mountain, skiing down. And then it cleared. And I looked down and I was like, I'm not going down there.
You could see so much further.
If you think about the fear that you were talking about earlier, we do get that moment where suddenly things are clear and you're like, oh no. And that's probably what some of these women are feeling after they do the one thing. So they've done these little quests or what have you, and everything's fine. And then it's like time to like look out and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. What are you telling them at that point where they're looking down and they're like, I'm not going down that mountain. Forget it. I'm not, there's no way.
One of the big pieces is that that's part of the process. Like if we start delegating things that should have been somebody else's, but we held on to them for too long, or we set a boundary with our boss and we get pushback. Like when we get pushback, when something goes wonky, a lot of clients come in and go, it didn't work, or I don't know what to do next, or I don't know if this is the right path. And one of the biggest things that I'll say is this is part of the process. This is actually a signal that it's working. And when I started coaching, oh my gosh, when I started coaching my team, because I used to hand over all the answers, I'd done all their jobs as I'd climbed the ladder. And so I knew how to do everything. And when I started coaching my team instead, they'd look at me and be like, well, I came to you for the answer. And I was like, I know, I get that. But I know that you know this and I trust you and I believe in you. And so it's getting comfortable pushing back and realizing that there's going to be some short-term discomfort, but it's for this thing that you want later on. And so one of the first things that I have everybody do when they come in is actually think through 3 years from now. My team is running the way that I want it to. They like their work. They enjoy working here. I'm working on the strategic projects that only I am qualified for, like the stuff that I should be doing instead of in the weeds. I have a life outside of work. Paint the picture. What does that look like? So they start there. So they have this North Star that they're headed towards and they have that reminder. And it's also this reminder of like, even when you get pushback, that doesn't mean you don't keep going. So I got a lot of pushback from my first CEO at first, and then after we acquired some from my second as well. And I kept sharing the shared win of why I was doing it and how it was helping. And the results then start to speak for themselves. And when those results come in of 49% revenue growth, or we just signed another C-suite speaker that's going to speak main stage with us, those things start talking louder than the old habits. Humans are creatures of habit. We have habits, like we like things the same way. And so part of it is you just have to get a little bit uncomfortable and be okay with that. And sometimes, honestly, it is a little bit easier if you're so far on the other side that you're like, I literally cannot anymore. So I have to do something different. So sometimes, ironically, it's easier for the clients that are actually in survival mode.
Now, we have a lot of listeners as I'm thinking about what you're sharing that are kind of they might be ready to exit. They might be at that senior executive level. They're like, okay, I'm ready. They might have 2 years left. There's so much change that is happening around with AI, with volatility. In that instance, people are feeling more insecure than ever of like, I have to do everything the same because I want to keep my job or those things. What are you suggesting to that person that's thinking about what she's going to do? How do I exit? And what should she be thinking about?
There's a couple things. If I were in that position or if I were guiding somebody through it, I like to ask a lot of questions before I give any advice. Like I am a coach, but I tend to mentor or advise a little bit too, and I'll shift those hats on. And so I would want to know like who here might be the next right person to take on your role? Who might want to grow into that? What does that look like? And I would also say if there's a fear around, well, I have to have my job for the next 2 years because then I'll have enough to retire or whatever it is, the control, the gripping onto of like, well, then I have to do this, or I have to say yes, or I have to say yes over here. One of the biggest things that I want to remind people of, and as they go through my program or anybody else's, is that the more that you start letting go of the work that shouldn't be yours, of the email you don't need to be on, of the planning that can go to your team and focus on the work that is strategically at your level, the more that your boss, the CEO, whoever, is going to see you as valuable. And so the instinct is to grip harder, and we kind of have to step back and go, okay, I understand why that's happening. And this is the highest and best use of my time. So I'm going to focus here. I'm going to give updates to my CEO, the board, whoever it is. And that's going to mean more often than not that I'm actually going to keep my role longer and be better in it. And then I'm going to be ready for retirement, moving on to the next thing, et cetera.
I think so often we forget what is the purpose of the company? What are they trying to do? Growth, transformation, risk, right? Like growth and transformation are the two things that are on all the executive minds. And so if you frame it like you did, which I think is brilliant, of, hey, look at this 49% increase. Also, by the way, the staff is ready to get promoted or have taken on new leadership skills that make the whole team better. That is a win that you don't have to have that like death grip on the I've got to do the, the weed stuff and get out. I love that.
And I'm sure most of your listeners already know this, but one of the things I feel like I talk about all the time in our group calls or anything else is what's the shared win here? Like, what does your boss need? What does your peer 3 departments over want? And how do you tie the things that you both need together so that it's a shared win?
That's so good. I could talk to you all day. This is so hard. But I want to make sure that I have time to talk about what you have coming up next because I talk about that a lot. You're doing something big this month. What is that? Tell us all about it.
So I've had a group coaching program for senior women leaders for a year now. And I wanted to build more of a community and something lower ticket that was open to a wider range of people because the chief everything officer also exists at the manager level or in the consulting world. So I have a community called the Non-Negotiables Club, and it's all about how can you keep being an ambitious woman in leadership who wants to learn, who wants to grow, who maybe wants to climb the ladder and have life outside of work. So that one thing lie that we talked about, you get one. We're combating that in real time in community with other women.
So good. I can't wait to see all the things. And when your book comes out at the end of the year, we'll touch
Yes.
base because I want to know all about that.
Okay.
I'm so glad that we had this conversation today. Thank you so much, Alli, for being on the show. It's been so fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending your time with us today. I hope if you are feeling like a chief everything officer, you'll find ways to take a step back, reassess, free up some of your time to give yourself some joy and start living your best life. If this episode was helpful, I would be so appreciative if you would share it with a friend or a colleague. I want to give a shout out to all our listeners around the world. Thank you for tuning in every week with us. And if you found this episode helpful, would you rate and review the show? It's how other listeners find us. As always, I want you to remember, keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.